Hi guys, Goss here, and today I'm going to show you how to make this scene in Unity with a 2D Tilemap Editor. We're going to cover sorting layers, how to create new tile palettes, that way you can paint, how to get the Tilemap Editor installed, how to get the grid on the screen, and how to add colliders to your tile maps. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new project. So go to new. I'm going to use 2019.4.18. It's the most recent LTS version out there. So we're going to use 2D, and we're going to name this, hey kitty, 2D tutorial series, because I'm planning on doing a couple videos, but they're all going to use the same scene. Select your location, that's fine for me, and then hit create. To be able to use the 2D Tilemap editors, we need to install it. So go to Windows, Package Manager, then under 2D Tilemap Editor, which is under Unity Registry, select it, and then if it says remove on the bottom right, that means it's installed. Now, if you're running 2019.18, you probably have it already installed. And if not, then just hit the install button, and when it's done, you'll be good to go. The next thing is we need assets. So I'm going to go to the asset store, go to Window, Asset Store. When you download and import assets for the first time, every time it's gonna say this message, and it's gonna tell you to install and update. Even if it doesn't need to, it's gonna do it, and you should always do it. Don't ever skip, because if you skip, you could very well cause problems. You don't need to select all of them. You can go none and then individually pick which ones you want. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to be too nitpicky. I'm just going to select all and import. It might take a little longer, but now that we have our tile maps in our asset folder, we can create a tile map palette. And in order to do that, we need to create well, my right button works, a 2D object called a tile map. Now this will create a grid. Now the grid is what the individual sprites are going to be painted onto, and the grid comes with a tile map, and you can add more, which we're going to do. So you right click on the grid, 2D object, and another tile map. Now this first tile map we're going to call ground, when I learned how to spell. And we're going to change the sorting layer down here. We're going to add a sorting layer. We're going to add a ground sorting layer, and then we're going to add a above sorting layer. Now what this does is that it allows you to tell Unity how to display these sprites, how to render them. So every sprite in the game that is set to the ground sorting layer will be rendered underneath everything that's got the default or above sorting layer. Everything that's got the default sorting layer will be rendered above ground but below above, if that makes sense, and so on and so forth. You can have countless sorting layers, and it looks like when I changed the name here, it did not take. So again, can't spell ground, hit enter, there it went. And we're going to name this one above. We're going to change the sorting layer to above. Oh, I didn't hit enter. Silly me. Above. Go back to ground just to make sure. Yep, didn't take ground. Okay, so now that we have our grid set up, we have our tile map set up, and the sorting layers good to go, we need to open up our tile palette window. So go to Window, 2D, Tile Palette. If your assets have a tile palette already in it, it's going to pop up first time, which is fine. Just in case, I'll show you how to create a new one. So you go to this little drop down box over here, create new. Call this Snowland 2, and this just specifies like, all right, what's your grid shape? How big are each cell? I always leave it default. Now, if you want things to be a little bigger, then you can adjust that and create. Now we're going to go to we're in our asset. We're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it Tile Palette, an S for plural. We're going to select that folder. So now all our tile palettes I'm going to put into this folder, but we don't have anything in there yet. So we need to go to our scene, our assets, our 2D hand painted tiles, and I'll put a link to these assets. They're paid assets. I think they were $9.99. The 2D, I'm going to go to sprites, and which one has the updated? Okay, so he's got 64. If you look down here, this is 128 by 128. This is 64 by 64. We're going to go with the 128 ones, and we're going to pick this guy. Now, all you got to do is click and drag it in there. And this is going to pop up, and we're going to go find our asset folder, tile palettes, and we're going to select that folder. Once it's done generating the tiles, you can paint with them. So we're going to move this guy down a little bit, if it'll work with me here. There it is. And I'm going to explain some of these buttons here. We're going to select our Tilemap ground. And notice how it says Tilemap ground here. Now, if I select above, it selects above. Now, if you're on above and you're painting ground, like say if I take this piece here, oops, sorry, wrong button. If I take this piece here, now I'm on ground, but if I paint over it, it's going to get painted over. Now if I'm on above, it won't. Now let me move it over, see? But if I was on the other one, it'd paint over it. So let's erase that quick, and I'll explain what these buttons do. Let's go back to ground. All right, so this button lets you select. You can select a tile down here. You can select a tile up here. Once it's selected, you can use the move tool and you can move it. Pretty much all you use it for. This button lets you paint. There's nothing up here, but if you have the brush tool selected and you select a tile down here, now you can paint with it. This tool is a drag and select. If you ever played like StarCraft or Age of Empires, you click and drag and everything within that box gets selected. It's kind of like that, except for it selects every grid position and then paints it whatever you have selected. So if I select this one and I click and drag, now everything in that box is going to get painted that. Now the eyedropper, you can select one down here and it'll paint, or you can select one here and it'll paint. Either way, it works. The eraser button does exactly what you expect it to do. It erases. And since we're on above, I'm going to erase all this because we don't want it on above. This one will fill up everything within a already set square. Now, so this is it's filling up everything within the camera. Now, if I go over here, it'll just kind of act as the drag and drop. But I will get a little more into that once we get something else done here. So I'm going to create a little scene. Now we'll do the fill one. So see, it's filling up this whole square here. Now if I go here, now it fills up the entire map there. You notice how the backgrounds of the other tiles are showing behind these tiles. Now that's because I changed my tile map. Now if I go back to ground and I select our our snowman here, it's going to erase the background because there's nothing behind it that's being rendered. Now when I change it to the above, that's when it renders these tiles above the ground tiles. If you were to set the player to the default, which if we look here, default is between a ground and above, he will be rendered above the water and the ground, but below the snowmen and the trees. Now let's say for a minute we change it to default. So now if we have a player set to default, he's going to be rendered on the same plane, but it's not going to stop him from moving. He'll just continue moving over it, and you'll get that dark background. You'll get this background behind the player sprite because his sprite takes up that entire square. Now, how do you prevent that? How do you prevent objects on the same layer from crossing over each other? Well, in order to do that, we need to add a collider. So we're going to add a Tilemap Collider 2D. Now you see on the objects here how it adds this kind of like a mesh collider or a polygon collider. And so it wraps as closely as possible the sprites. Now if I had a player with a collider on it, he would bump into these objects and be able to walk around them, but you won't be able to walk over them unless, of course, they were on a different sorting layer. Okay, and that's all I have for the 2D Tilemap Editor. We created a winter scene, and I believe the next video I'm going to create 2D lighting. So thanks for watching. If you liked it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know what you think in the comment section below.